everybody. This is Dr. Shahin Ghadir with Southern California Reproductive Center. I want to welcome you guys all to our panel today. I'm really excited to have three people that I really have a lot of respect for everything that they do in their normal lives and also everything that they're doing to build their families as well. So welcome. And I'm going to go ahead and start by letting you know a little bit about myself. I'm Shahin Ghadir. I'm one of the fertility partners at Southern California Reproductive Center. We are located in Beverly Hills, California, and we're considered to be one of the premier practices on the West Coast of the United States. We have an entire division that's dedicated to anyone using an egg donor, a surrogate, or a sperm donor for that matter. And we have done a lot of cycles for gay couples that have turned out to be absolutely perfect cycles, and we're very proud of that. We have great partners in this process. We have people that hold your hand and can guide you through this entire process as well. And we're really excited to have our three guests on this panel today. With that being said, I'd like to start by introducing them and letting you guys know a little bit more about what they do and how they decided to start this process. And Chris, why don't you go ahead and start?
Hi, my name is Chris Cortazzo. Welcome, everyone. And this has been a lifelong dream of mine to have a child. I came from a very close family, and I've been talking about it for years. And then a few years ago, I had one of my assistants go full-time because I didn't have your information, Trey, on that. So I started the process, and I have a 10-month-old baby right now named Agnello. So it's been a fun journey. I was born and raised in Malibu, and it's just a lot of fun. It's added such a different and fulfilling layer to my life, which I'm so appreciative of.
Thank you so much, Chris, and we're so happy to have you here today. Taylor, how are you?
Taylor,
Taylor, hi guys, I'm Taylor Fry. I'm the founder and director of Elevate Donors and Surrogates. Our goal at this company is to offer you high caliber donor options to get you excited about sometimes a challenging process, as well as find you the surrogate of your dreams, someone you can trust, someone you can create part of your extended family with, and allow to carry your child, and let be a vessel for you as you fulfill your dreams in this way.
Would you like to let everyone know where you are on this? Sorry, go ahead, Chris.
I knew you when I was starting this process because you've definitely streamlined it from our previous conversation. And what an amazing service that you provide.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. It was based off of our own experience. We went through IVF 6 years ago. Still no child yet, but ideally an upcoming transfer really soon. So we started helping everybody else have kids, and our own process got put on the back burner a little bit. But we have really searched the globe over to find pretty fantastic women that are very generous and altruistic and excited to help people like Kyle and I, and like you guys, to have a kid.
And Southern California Reproductive Center has had an amazing experience working with Elevate. I think the caliber of donors, and now beginning with surrogates as well, has just been beautiful. And we're really excited about their growth and to continue our relationship with them.
Yeah, right back at you. SCRC has taken great care of our clients and our donors. If any potential donors are even listening, great clinic to go to for donation. We'll take great care of your ovaries with many ultrasounds and great management of the dosage. So
thank you. Victor, how are you?
I'm great. Glad to be able to discuss something that was so important to us. My husband and I have two kids, 8-year-old and a 10-year-old. We had a very challenging process initially, and so we have definitely experienced the highs and lows of the surrogacy process, selecting egg donors and building relationships with surrogates and all that sort of thing. And but at the end of the day, we have two perfect children that we love and that we're sort of getting into the preteen years with, which is a joy. And so that all worked out. And professionally, I work as the Vice President of Diversity, Inclusion, and Belonging at Barry's.
Wonderful. And now I know not to trust anything Victor says, because as a parent of an 11-year-old and him of a 10-year-old, it's a challenging times, and we wish you guys all a lot of luck in advance to when you get there, by the way. So I had a lot of questions sent to me on Instagram over the last week, and I was collecting a bunch of them, and I'd like to take the opportunity to kind of go through them. One of the most important questions that I wanted to ask everyone is, what were they looking for in a clinic when you started this journey? Victor, do you want to answer that? Since, go ahead. Yeah. Taylor, go ahead.
This is going to sound so cliche and perhaps too general, but I wanted to feel safe. I wanted to feel like I was in the right hands for such an important decision. And we had met with quite a few, and we would get off the phone calls and I just would turn to Kyle and we both were like, no, that's just not it. That's just not it, is it? I just wanted to feel, I don't know. I wanted to feel safe. And on a Zoom call or in person, sometimes it's hard to collect that immediately. So that was something we looked for.
And that's really important thing, to have complete confidence in the person who's going to be controlling and helping you with one of the biggest aspects of your entire life. So I agree that you need to find someone that you have a bond with, someone that completely understands your goals, and someone that you have good means and methods of communication with, because there's going to be a lot of opportunities during this process that can go on for a really long time, that you want to be able to have contact and know how you're going to get your answers taken care of immediately. So that's, I think, a really important thing. Chris, how about you?
That was the first thing that came to my mind as well, is security, safety, because you're putting so much trust into a situation, and you need the confidence of that situation because it's such a monumental move. And I wanted that security for sure.
Really good. What about you, Victor? How did you pick?
Yeah, I mean, we just were really looking for someone that we trusted and that we had a connection with. And you sort of know that right away when you meet someone. And we met several people, and the doctor and the clinic that we eventually went with, it was like, we just felt like we were going to be taken care of, and that the doctor was as invested in the process as we were.
Did any of you guys research and look at the statistics of success for your clinics before, or was it more just the trust with the doctor that was more important?
We did. Yeah, we looked at all of the data. Now, I know there's an argument to be made about CDC data and the reporting, and is it accurate, is it not? What are the policies of the clinic? Is it an open door clinic that tries to help everybody, or is it a really closed door, as we call it, clinic that will only help people with the best chance of success? So we tried to keep it all in mind as we were choosing, because CDC data can mean a lot and it can mean a little. So, but yeah, we definitely looked.
I mean, we definitely did some research on the clinic, and then we just also, when we went in to interview the doctors, and eventually the doctor that we chose, like, we really understood, just based on how everything was structured, that he was in it with us. Like, we were all in the process together, just the way everything was structured. So, and he had an incredible track record of success. So we felt affirmed. The data was affirmed by that.
Yeah, mine was a referral, so that's how I got it. But then afterwards, I met Shahin, and I feel very safe with Shahin, and it would have been a different direction. But I'm very, I have a beautiful son, and I'm very happy right now.
Great. So once a patient or a couple comes to our clinic, we go through a lot of medical history, trying to make sure that everyone is optimized in their health and in the outcome, and from the participation of the sperm side, making sure that everything is as perfect as possible. When the next part after that, if everything is a good go and we're ready to move forward, is the process of selecting an egg donor. And I'm really curious, and I'd love to hear what you guys have to give advice to someone, because this is, I think, the most challenging aspect, is picking your donor. It's someone whose genetics are going to be mixed with yours, who are going to be creating your children. And I'm really curious, and I'm going to ask Taylor this question because this is what he does all day long, about how you recommend to your clients to pick the egg donors, and also what was the most important things for you.
Well, health is paramount, obviously, and you're not going to get very far in your journey without knowing that the donor is going to be a great donor for you. And that's obviously Dr. Ghadir's job, for example. So There's lots of arguments about proven donors or first-time donors. Kyle and I used a first-time donor to great success, but of course, again, you're not going to get very far in the process without knowing she's going to be a great donor for you based on AMH levels or antral follicle counts, things that we can count on for a healthy egg yield. But I tell my clients this all the time. Aside from that aspect, after you've reviewed their family history, do you like this woman? Does she get you excited about enlisting her genetics to build a family? Does she make you excited to have a family? Because the truth is, there's a lot of research to be read about what's passed down and what is not, intelligence, personality, drive, all of these things. But what you're seeing of this donor in that video that you're watching or on the call with her or in the profile, what does she make you feel? What does she make your heart do? And I always tell people, follow your heart, go with who resonates with you and makes you feel excited about having a kid. Easier said than done sometimes.
But I have to say, I think that's really good advice, because one of the things I like to tell people is that you're not going to find a perfect human being. None of us are perfect. I know Taylor's almost perfect, but most of us are not perfect. But with that being said, this is a human connection. And when we meet someone, whether it's our egg donor, whether it's our partners in life, no one is perfect. And you have to look at this globally. And there has to be just something there in your heart that's telling you it's the right person. And there's no one you're going to find that never had a relative that didn't have cancer or some issue that's going to be passed on. And we've got to kind of trust our instincts as well. Chris, how did you pick that?
I was paralyzed for a couple of years just trying to pick out the right donor. And I went through many FaceTime videos with different people, and I'd see a picture with them, and one was a vet, and I thought, oh, this is the perfect one. And then energetically on the phone or on the video conference call, I felt nothing until this lady Madison came along, and I just fell in love with her. I mean, it was just like love at first sight, and hearing her story. She didn't ever want to have her own child. She wanted to give the gift of life to other people. So I was so touched by that. And she was vegetarian since she was 4. And so she checked all the boxes, and she just had this spark of life and this essence that I wanted to be part of her, and I wanted that child. It was just the one. And I think you go through quite a few, and when you do feel it, you know it. I mean, it's there. So I'm glad I had a lot of trial runs on that, and then the surrogate as well. But that's a whole nother story too. But,
Chris, you got a chance to speak to your donor?
Oh,
or was
yeah.
it just watching videos?
Oh no, we face to face on FaceTime. And then actually she came out, I flew her out from Utah, and we had lunch together. And she was just such a beautiful essence of her spirit and her soul and everything. I was just so impressed. And now we're still friends. My whole thing is it's all about love for my baby. So I want her involved. And she'll be coming. She was supposed to come out and see Agnello, but unfortunately COVID hit and they had to cancel their trip. So.
And Taylor, do you have donors at Elevate that people could talk to, or is it mostly anonymous?
You know what? It's the matching process. We have a huge amount of donors who would love to meet the intended parents, and then there's a large percentage of donors who would rather be more anonymous. All of our donors are open to being reached out to through the appropriate channels when a child's 18, or you can sign up for the donor sibling registry. But that's part of our process, is finding the right match based on if they want to be anonymous or know each other. Anything can be facilitated.
Great. Victor, how did you select your donor?
I mean, we were definitely like medical history was number one for us. Like it was the big thing for us. And then the energy in the videos we were not allowed, the agency we were working with, we couldn't actually meet our donor, but we saw videos. And so the videos, like you can sort of get the energy from someone in the video, and like a lot of them we like saw and it looked great, and then we would see the video and we're like, no way. Like, this is not happening. But then for us, there, the sort of additional factor that we considered is that you know, I'm Black, my husband is white, and we wanted both of our children to be biracial. And we knew that we were doing 2 surrogacies, and we were going to use my sperm for one and his. So we were at first trying to find a biracial egg donor that also had a very, you know, a medical history that we were okay with, and that also didn't, on the video, didn't make us like cringe. And so that ruled a lot of people out. And what we ended up doing is we used separate donors because we just couldn't find that sort of like interplay. And you know, we were really focused on like personality, medical history, and ethnicity. Like that was really important to us, to make sure that our children from a racial standpoint would identify with both of us.
So that's amazing. And as a physician, I just want to, you know, just let people know, when we are looking at records to see if a donor is a good donor, we look at blood tests. Taylor touched on this, but there's one called an AMH level. The AMH is the hormone that comes from all the eggs in the body. So when we check the donor's blood for AMH, if the level is high, we have a lot of eggs. And if the level is low, we don't have a lot of eggs. That's a very, very good indication to us if the donor is going to be productive and make a good number of eggs, especially when you have to take the eggs and then divide them into 2 halves to be fertilized by 2 different sperm in one cycle. We have to be also very cognizant of that. So that is a really important thing. Checking also for antral follicle counts, which is an ultrasound that we do that looks at the ovaries and checks for these little bubbles, and each one being a potential egg for the future is also important. And Taylor touched on that as well. Those 2 things are really, really important, as well as looking at the health. You know, these are really great things, and I've seen all of these things be very important for my intended parents, but I've also seen things like academic records to be important. I've also seen things about family histories to be important. For some people, it's really important to have a proven donor, meaning someone that's already donated before, but I've also made it very clear, and Taylor said he went for a first-time donor. All of our amazing 2nd time, 3rd time, 4th time donors were always at one time a first-time donor. So in no way do I think that, you know, just taking someone off the list because they haven't donated before is appropriate. And you can sometimes find amazing donors moving that way as well. So
I just want to jump in quickly too on Victor and Chris. Oh, sorry, Victor, go.
No, it's interesting that you mentioned about, because that was another factor that I forgot. We were very focused with our first daughter on like it being a proven egg donor, like, and we had a disaster. Like we got all the way up to the retrieval, and then she tested positive for hepatitis. It was like a whole thing. And then we selected another one. So when we got to the second one, we were like, we don't care about that. Like we chose a first-time egg donor, and like we had a baby in 11 months. So it's like, you know.
I love how different your guys' Chris and Victor, your experiences were so different. You really know your donor very well. You saw a video. Both are great options. And as we work with our psychologists to make sure the mental health of these donors is good too, what we found actually is that many men, especially gay men, they actually, based on our experiences, wherever you may have grown up, some homes were better than others, of course, they count on their donor to make up for a lot in them. We find that as people search for donors, their criteria, especially amongst gay men, and this is, our program actually really caters to these really specific standards. And it can start to teeter on commodifying a donor a little bit, looking at her stats and not looking at her as a human. Well, how did she do a test score when she was 14 years old, as opposed to who is she as a woman? So it can be a really tricky balance. And I loved hearing that you are super involved with yours. You saw a video and you both love your kids equally as much. And it's just an amazing, happy family.
Yeah, for me, I wasn't concerned about their SAT scores because I did horrible on the SATs. So and that's not the way my brain works, but I'm successful, thank God. But yeah, it was just about her spirit, I guess. And you know what? I think it's important because we have such a close relationship. And, you know, and Yellow has a brother and a sister, a half brother and a sister. So I think it's important for him in life to know his other family. So that's a very specific and I think special relationship. I don't think it happens all the time. So
yeah, and I think it's awesome. Another thing I like to encourage people to keep in mind is a lot of these women, where their socioeconomic circumstances slightly different, would be in an Ivy League school or would have a totally different life. You know, it's interesting to keep everyone's expectations checked. But I think that's incredible. That's where the donor sibling registry is so amazing too. connects these families as things progress and keeps you anonymous until you decide not to be. So it's a great way to go through the process in 2020.
And I like that you brought light upon something that I bring upon to my patients all the time, is that, you know, sometimes donors they're giving from their heart. They're going through so much to be able to pass on their egg and their genetics, but they may not have had the same upbringing or the opportunities that someone else may have had that didn't allow them to become as academically achieved or as successful. And I think it's really smart not to assess those things on someone. But Victor, you said something really important. You went all the way through and then like hepatitis popped up. And that's a really important point, because bumps in the road will happen. I've been very lucky because I've had a lot of cycles that some people have had 0 bumps ever, like with 2 kids and everything went perfect the entire way. But that is like the lotto winner of the fertility world. And there's going to be something. There's going to be something for every single person's journey. And I want people to be aware and to get themselves ready that there's going to be a bump. It could affect finances. It could affect timing. It could affect a lot of different outcomes at the end of it. But if you're going into this and not understanding there could potentially be a little bump in the road, then you may be very surprised and shocked as you proceed. And that's a big portion of it is the egg donor. But the next portion of it, once we introduce the sperm and the egg and we make embryos and we allow those embryos to grow beautifully, the ability to do genetic testing these days is huge. In our clinic, we're very proud to say probably 99.9% of our patients do genetic testing on embryos. I'm a firm believer, after going through everything that someone is going through to get this process moving, the genetic testing is rather important. Some people would say, but it's a young egg of a young woman and most of her eggs are healthy, and that's absolutely right. But we have seen, because we see the results of a lot of women in their 20s who have donated, that there still is a chance of having abnormal embryos. And the last thing I want to tell any of my patients is at 3 to 4 months that something went wrong, and probably due to genetics. So we firmly believe and recommend doing the genetic testing on embryos. It does let you know, if you want to know, the gender as well. But if you don't want to know, we kind of conceal that as well. We're basically an open book. So if anyone does, we've had couples tell us that we don't want to know whose embryo it is, and we don't want to know next time whose embryo it is, but you can pick, you know, the opposite person's next time. So we're able to kind of help the process of how people want to do that as well. That kind of leaves us to the next process of someone who's going to be carrying your baby or babies for this process, and that's the finding of a surrogate, which we have done a lot of, and we have screened, and it's a process that can become very complicated, and finding someone that you bond with. I'm really curious to know how you guys began with that process. And Victor, since you've done this twice, I want you to go ahead and start with that process.
Well, it was complicated. We actually were, at the time when we were having our first daughter, we were living in New York, and our agency was based in Los Angeles. And just because of the way that the laws worked at the time, it was most advantageous that our surrogate be in California. So we actually got matched with a surrogate pretty quickly, and we had a meeting with her, and honestly, I felt like she was one of my family members. Like, I was like, oh my God, this woman is amazing. Like, we sort of hit it off instantly. We agreed to work with her. And very soon thereafter, we started to see some cracks. Well, the first crack was she got a little bit drunk on our first dinner together. That was one. And then, you know, once we got into cycles, she would actually, even though she had a cycle calendar, she would call me and ask me what she was supposed to be doing that day. Like,
oh, no.
And then, as it turned out, you know, there was a medical issue that came up literally while she's in the stirrups getting ready to have the transfer. There was like some fluid in her uterus, and it was like, but we had to go through with the transfer. And our doctor told us, if the transfer doesn't work, we're gonna require that you use a different surrogate. So that happened. The transfer didn't work, and we immediately got matched with a new surrogate who I didn't actually feel this instant bond with, but she had a different support system in place that I felt more comfortable with. Her husband was very involved. You know, there was just a different circumstance, and we actually, you know, took a little bit of time to agree to work with her, but we found our way there, and ended up getting pregnant right away with her, and had a miscarriage, and then got pregnant again. But it was definitely, we were looking, you know, for someone. At first, I think we were looking for someone to like really have like a relationship with. And we still wanted a relationship, but after the first experience, we were like, we needed to be a little bit more distant. Like we just needed a little bit more safe distance. Like our first one would call us and ask us for money outside the contract. And there were just a lot of things that we didn't really know. Like we were like, we just want to have a baby. So yeah, you want to have, like, we'll help you in any way we can. And as it turned out, the second surrogate, even though I didn't feel like I personally had the same connection with her, she was the perfect surrogate for us. She carried 2 children for us. She carried 2 children for our best friend. We still see her from time to time, and she's like a really, really wonderful woman that we will never be able to thank enough.
I guess the lesson to learn there is that when you're looking at a surrogate, there's different things to be looking at than someone really fun to go to dinner with and have a lot of drinks with. So,
I mean, we don't even drink, so we were just watching her drink. So.
Oh no, not this. This is terrible.
That's a really good one. We're going to remember that one. And some advice, Taylor, to give your future surrogates when going to dinner with the intended parents.
Oof, yeah, right. I mean, Kyle Dean here, actually, he runs our surrogacy department. He's going through a stack of records right now, just making sure she is ready, vetted, and good to go. But I mean, just out of Victor's experience, no, those terms are preset. There is no additional asking for money, and there's certainly no drinking at dinner. So,
and to be clear, it was set out in the contract that that wasn't supposed to happen. But
you guys are nice.
You know, when you start developing a relationship with someone, and you know, surrogacy is a very emotional process, and you know, it takes you a long time to get to the place where you even have a surrogate. And then you really feel like, or we felt like, wow, we really want to have this kid. And we felt like what she was asking for wasn't a lot for us, but it was going to be a big impact for her. So we're like, yeah, let's do this. Like, let's do this. But as it turns out, it blurs the lines. And we were just like, this isn't something that we can co-sign.
You know, that's a really good point you made, Victor. The process of getting to the point of having a surrogate ready to go, for some people, takes forever. And I just want to be really clear about this. My recommendation to all of my patients is to start finding your donor, the best donor that you feel really happy with. And until you have a healthy egg and a healthy sperm making a beautiful genetically normal embryo, I don't find the need to start looking for your surrogate before that. Some of the surrogacy agencies, and I'm sorry, I'm not sure what Taylor's take is on this, but they want you to sign up immediately with them and try to find the surrogate when there's nothing has happened already. And I'm not a huge fan of that. I've done it that way before, and I'm telling most of my patients now, I think the better way to do it is to concentrate on your egg donor. Once we see that there is a light at the end of the tunnel, finding the perfect donor and you're going to have gorgeous embryos, let's start the process then. One of the things that we like to do at the clinic is that once we have your beautiful embryos ready to go, we have the ability inside and internally to have one of our employees. Her job is basically to match people. So she'll reach out to multiple surrogacy agencies that we have great relationships with and say, we have a gay couple that wants to transfer 2 embryos. Do you have someone available? And then we'll get responses like, we have one in 2 months, we have someone coming up, or we don't have one. And we can kind of match someone a little faster that way. There's different ways of doing it. And please be careful when you're picking to make sure you're doing the route that's going to be best for you. Chris, how was your process of picking your surrogate?
It was tricky, actually. I wanted face-to-face meetings, so we'd have lunch. One, I swear that her son was Damien, and he just was so dark, and I didn't want the energy of my child around him. And other ones just didn't want to exercise. They were just awful. But once I found the right one, I knew it was a match. I'm very health conscious, so we paid her extra in the contract for organic food, and my assistant would drive up and make sure, or fly up to make sure there's no telephone wires nearby their apartments or their home, because we didn't want that radioactive or that bad energy. So we did a lot of research beforehand of each surrogate, and Yeah, it's a process. It really is a process.
Taylor, I think you need to hire Chris's assistant to start going and driving and checking for the telephone wires and adding that on your list of things to check
Yeah,
out.
listen, I think it's a totally noble desire. I mean, it's great that that was really important and you went and checked that and stuff. You know, it can be, a fine line between micromanaging the surrogate and also you sleeping well at night, feeling like, listen, I don't want any of those radioactive waves around my journey. I think that's amazing. And that's the agency's job, is to find you that fit. So I think it's great.
Yeah,
I'm glad
just to see.
That's amazing that you were able to find that. I've had a lot of people inquire about that, and I remember a surrogate asked me, like, what's organic? So I just, now it's become much more available and everyone knows about it. But about 10 years ago, when we were starting this process of finding surrogates for people, not everyone was even aware of it, especially some people that may have been going through the process. So I'm glad that you're able to find that. And yes, you should be asking and wanting everything that you feel comfortable with. Taylor, since you're beginning this process, what are you looking at most importantly when trying to find your own surrogate?
You know what? I think it was kind of similar to what we wanted out of the clinic. I wanted to feel safe in that I trusted her. And our first surrogate, who I was so excited about, like, she's textbook perfect. Her lining was perfect. I saw her like hanging out and being part of our family. She ended up, and I do consider Kyle and I pretty like normal intended parents in this way. We don't expect a lot. We do want her to eat organically. We've offered her that. We made a great deal with her. It felt very, very comfortable. I do think she had a telephone wire by her house, unfortunately. So now that's in my mind. Thanks, Chris. But she lied to us about something so simple. She was dishonest with us about something so dumb. And I wasn't even trying to find it out. It just presented itself. And it broke our trust in her completely. And I just thought, well, geez, what a dumb thing to lie about for such serious issues as, the child is growing. I just want complete transparency and honesty, and I wanted to feel safe. So we had to go back on the hunt, and we did find the ultimate surrogate. She's fantastic. We're super excited. And she's a doula, so it's great.
Oh my God, wow.
Wow.
That's a good one.
The other thing too is that what I would do with my surrogate is I would send a baby in yellow a message every day. So whatever I was, because I wanted him to start hearing my voice, and I wanted to start sending and transferring that love to him because I was so excited. So that was my relationship with the surrogate. And so, and it was sweet, she recorded every one of them so he could then listen later in life of me talking to him in her stomach. So.
Wow.
Yeah, that was one other thing that was really important to us. Like they asked us, how much contact do you want to have with your surrogate? And we, said that we wanted to have a lot of contact with her during the pregnancy. So, our surrogate, I talked to her, one of us talked to her almost every day. And like I said, we were living in New York, but I flew out for almost every single doctor's appointment. Like, so I would come like every couple of weeks because we wanted to be there to support her, but we also wanted to like really see the pregnancy progress, even though we were across the country. And, if she hadn't been open to that, that wouldn't have been a surrogate that we could have worked with.
I think that's so important that you went to her milestone visits. I think that's amazing. I mean, she's doing something so generous aside from compensation. I think that's the biggest way you can be there for a surrogate, is going to those appointments.
Yeah, I went. I know. I did not miss one. That was like priority. And it's to see the baby and hearing the heartbeat. Oh my goody God. It's great.
And it was great with our second one because our younger daughter was 2 years old, so she could go and she was able to like see her sister like growing, and she could see the ultrasounds, and she, it was really a special experience. So that was great.
That's really nice. Hopefully COVID clears up and everyone can start coming to all these appointments.
I didn't even think of that. Jeez.
Yeah, so it's been our current challenge, but hopefully that's going to not be a challenge for much longer. I really appreciate everything that you guys have said. I have one final question, and then we can wrap this up. And I know that everyone's very busy. And if there's one piece of advice that you can give to someone in your shoes that is about to start this process, what would that one piece of advice be?
I would say follow your heart. let your heart will know what the right decision is going to be. And I would be very wary of doing it with a friend because I think it's good to have a little bit of separation so they don't feel that it's theirs. Because if you're going to go on this journey, you want complete control of your child's life. So that's my 2 cents.
Thank you.
I would say you sort of alluded to it, but I would just say to remember that it's, you know, having a baby is not a linear process. It's not just like you take all the steps and then you have the baby like, 10 months later. Like, it's not the way that it works. And I know that coming from my sort of entitled perspective, like thought, well, we did everything we're supposed to do, so where's the baby? And we hit a lot of different road bumps. We had road bumps with our egg donor, with our surrogate, and fortunately, our doctor was like, "Listen, I have never worked with a family that stayed committed to the process that wasn't able to have a child. So you got to stay committed to the process." And it took almost 3 years for our first daughter. Like 3 years. It's a long time to stay emotionally invested in something that you have no control over. And so I would just say, like, my advice is like, just keep your eye on what you want. Like, just if you want a child, like I always say, it's like the perfect practice for parenting, because like I have no control over these kids. Like, they're on their own journey, and your baby is making its way to you, and it happens in the universe's timing, not your own.
Yeah, I would say picking up where Victor kind of left off, staying committed is obviously key, and staying positive is very, very important. I watch clients crumble all the time at sometimes even the smallest hiccups, which I get. It is emotional and it is expensive, but I am a huge believer in energy in this process, and I absolutely believe that the more positive you remain, the better the outcomes are going to be for you. Not always, I understand that. The science is heavily involved, but I will say, I just think staying positive is going to create a lot more magic around you. I believe very much in that. So stay as positive as you can, even when things don't go the way that you thought they might.
Another
Amazing advice.
What I did is I prayed. My dad's in heaven, and I asked him for his guidance and to pick, because my mom and dad are my best friends. And I just prayed for a really beautiful soul and a best friend. And I think that adds a lot to the process, because you're already starting to attach to this amazing being. So I think that's, going back to you, Taylor, it's part of the same process. Just start putting the energy out there, and you'll be rewarded greatly.
All excellent advice.